And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Emily Kady, who, after her near-death experience, woke up as a different person because she was replaced by a walk-in. Emily, thank you for joining me and welcome.
Thank you, Jeff, for having me. I'm happy to be here today.
Well, we're happy to have you. Emily, let's start on the day that you had the NDE and go from there.
Absolutely. So I had to go to the doctor for a simple procedure. And as I was in the doctor's office, she gave me a shot of lidocaine. Um, the moment she gave me the shot, I started to feel like I was going to faint, but the feelings were amplified by like 100. The room was spinning, I was woozy, lightheaded, and then I was trying to say to my doctor, I need help. But my mouth wouldn't open. The next thing, and I remember thinking, I have to put my head between my legs so I don't faint. The next thing I know, I'm in this dark space and it's euphoric, pure nirvana. Those feelings of uneasiness and discomfort just moments ago were vanished. They were gone. And I'm in this space and have no connection to my physical body. None. I had no clue what my body was going through. And so I'm in this space and all of a sudden I'm in this black tunnel with a white light and the silhouette at the end of it. And I'm floating. I'm just floating towards this silhouette. And I don't know where I'm at. I have no clue, but I don't care. I felt nirvana. I just felt like I've never felt this way in my entire life. It just felt so good. And I didn't care who this person or this being was that I was floating towards. And as I was floating, I had this thought, oh, I'm transitioning. And then another thought crossed my mind. My mom, my dad, and my beloved dog Buster are going to be devastated. Now, I'm an empath, and if you know anything about an empath, empaths are people that they have the capability, not necessarily always wanted, to take on other people's emotions. Other people's energy fields actually come into empaths, and empaths actually will feel the other person's emotion instantaneously. So being an empath my whole life, always being concerned about everyone else's emotions but my own was like a priority, because if I felt somebody's grief, then I was going to compound it with my own grief. So it was intense for me. But when I realized in this moment, I was concerned about my parents and my dog, but I didn't have grief. I was detached and there was no grief for me, but I knew they were going to experience it. And I realized I feel complete. I'm whole. I don't need to take on anyone else's emotions. I'm completely 100% my own essence at this moment. Then I saw 3 different timelines and they looked like thermometers the older thermometers that has the liquid mercury in them. And in there, it showed each of their timeline of how long they would be in a deep grief state. And I could see the lifespan that they had remaining to live, that the grief was only a portion of it, that they would be able to go back to their normal state. I mean, I do believe grief stays with us in this 3D world, but there's different phases of it, and you can start to have a smile on your face again. You can start to, move through the deep, intense grief and into being able to enjoy life again. And that was important for me. As soon as I could see, okay, they're not going to spend the rest of their life in this grief state that is just all consuming, then I was like, okay, I'm ready to transition. I'm ready to go. So as I continued to float up, in that moment I said, I'm ready, let's go. This force came at me and pushed me backwards. So I was going like backwards in the tunnel now. So before I was floating up, now I'm going backwards at like rapid speed, and dropped right back into my body. I woke up with amnesia. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know who my doctor was. She was yelling the name Emily, and I had no clue who Emily was. I was scared to death because here she was standing over me, and I didn't know who she was. And I'm like, I didn't even, I couldn't tell you that she was a doctor. I didn't know anything. I had like my whole memory was completely erased. I had no concept of anything. And so it took me a while to like orient myself and go, okay, I think I'm Emily. Okay, yeah, I think I'm Emily, and I still don't know who this person is. The other thing I really found interesting was um, in the spirit realm, everything's expansive. There is no limitations. There's nothing that confines you. And when I was forced back into my body, I'm in this stark white exam room with walls. I had no concept of what this confined space was. It didn't make any sense to me, and it was really confining. Um, so again, I was able to connect like, okay, I'm Emily, and I still don't know who she is. Eventually, I'm like, okay, she's a doctor. And it took me a minute to like orient myself and get back to it. However, what was happening that I was unaware of, and I was not in tune with my physical body at all. I know some people who have had NDEs, they kind of float above and they see what's going on. I was ready to go. I was like, I'm out, bye-bye. So I didn't care what was going on with my physical body. What had happened is I was having a grand mal seizure, and I stopped breathing, and my doctor had to resuscitate me. So that's what brought me back into my body. Um, Prior to my NDE, I had a learning disability. So from a young age, and being an empath, an empath tends to overcompensate to try to like cover up their sensitivity so they can fit in and feel normal. Well, I was an empath and I had a learning disability. So I was always overcompensating just to be able to fit in. So as a young child, I basically sacrificed my childhood to learn, so that I could be normal, considered, normal to whatever guidelines that was to so that I put on myself, obviously. Um, and so this NDE was back in 2015. I was about 38, 39 at the time, and I had two seven-figure businesses. So I had worked very hard to kind of show off to the world that I knew what I was doing. I was drained. It was not what I was supposed to be doing. So I was exhausted. The other thing is I was married to a man that I knew 7 years prior I had to leave the relationship, but I didn't know how to. And so an empath and a narcissist, common relationship. And so I didn't have the courage to get out of that relationship. So my soul was tired. It was worn out from trying to live up to everyone else's expectations and not ever putting my own self first. So when I had my NDE, what had happened was my soul went to rest, my original occupant. It went to rest. And I had a mastered aspect of myself from because we're multidimensional beings, a mastered aspect for myself, or more mastered, I should say, stepped in so that I could finish out my soul purpose in this lifetime. It was fascinating because within 6 months of my NDE, I left my husband. Within a year, I had closed my businesses. I walked away from everything. All I cared about, I didn't care about money. I didn't care, like I was prior to my NDE, I was always about the big house and nice cars. After that, I didn't care about any of that. I left my husband with my dog, my computer, and my car. That's all. I didn't care about anything. And I found a little cute little house that was walking distance to the beach in San Clemente, California, and walking distance to the downtown strip called Del Mar. And my dog and I, we just spent our days walking to the beach and going to a cafe at Del Mar on Del Mar and just hanging out. And meanwhile, otherwise, I was a hermit in my little house. I didn't want to socialize because I didn't know who I was. I left everything. And I was like, who is this person inside of me? So I just kind of went into hibernation for a good year, year and a half, just trying to figure out who I was and where I belonged in this. The other thing I found out was really fascinating. I was very angry that I came back into my body. I did not want to be back. Um, so there was a part of me, my old self or my ego that was still here was very angry, like this is not where I belong. So there was some serious frustration. Um, but my more mastered self was keeping me on track, and it was like I like to think of it, it was like untangling the mess that I had created for myself because I couldn't stand up for myself. So the more mastered self was able to say, okay, yeah, let's untangle this mess and let's get you sorted. And it honestly, Jeff, it took years. It's not an overnight thing that happened to me. It's like years of sorting out acclimating to this new mastered self. I had worked with three different spiritual gurus during this time, and all three of them, they don't know each other. They all told me I was a walk-in. They all said, oh, you're a walk-in. Let's work with this and let's help guide you and so that you can acclimate with this new energy and really streamline your efforts here because you have a purpose. We all have a purpose in this lifetime. So I invested the time and the money to really try to figure out why I'm here and work with it. It's a discipline. It's a discipline to really connect with your soul purpose and live it out. It was worth it to me because going back to my old ways were not helping. They weren't, there is no purpose for life when you're living for everyone else. At least that was how I was feeling. So that's where I was at. It took some time, and I was able to really truly work myself out of that situation. A few times I tried to go back to my old ways, and it was fascinating. When I would go back to my old ways, doors would be closed on me. I was like, nothing was smooth for me if I tried to go back to my old ways. My more mastered self kept pushing me back to where I'm supposed to be going. It was a learning, or it was a little bit lonely because I lost friends in this scenario or this situation because I didn't connect with them the same way I had before. I didn't know them. They just weren't the same people to me. So I was grateful for my dog because I had him to as a companion. I didn't know who would be a good friend for me at that point because I didn't know myself. And how do you really connect with people when you don't know yourself? So that is where it led me to this day, where now I am on a path that I know what my purpose is and help open up the doors to those that are in the dark night of a soul, to guide them through this transition, because the dark night of the soul doesn't, and for me it was an NDE, but it doesn't have to be an NDE for you. It could be a loss of a loved one or a loss of a job or something that happens that's traumatic to you, and it changes the way you think, and something has to change. And that's where I come in to help guide people through this, to help guide them out of that darkness and into the light of what their growth and their journey is supposed to look like.
Emily, thank you for sharing your experience with us. In my definition of a walk-in, I would think that you as a conscious being would stay there and somebody else came.
Yeah, so that is what a lot of people believe walk-ins are, as a different aspect of, or a different soul, completely different soul will
Yeah.
step in. In my case, it was a more mastered aspect of me came in to finish out my life purpose.
Is it possible while you were there that you had this massive upgrade and this new upgraded version of you was pushed back in?
It's possible. What I have explored through my spiritual mentors, as well as my own channeling, going into spirit, is that aspect of my soul went to rest and the new one came in at that moment. What So it would be an upgrade at that moment, but what I do know is a lot of walk-ins happen in traumatic situations of people's lives. My soul was so exhausted at that moment. I had only lived for everyone else. I never knew how to live for myself. My soul was done. And that's why I think in my NDE experience, when I transitioned, I didn't even want to connect with my body. I had no desire to even look back. It was just like, let's go. And that aspect did go. So having that, yeah, just having those moments. And also, in my exploration with a lot of walk-ins happen to a lot of empaths because they don't live their truth. And so their souls get worn out and exhausted. So it's a really like loving way that the soul is able to help that aspect of the soul rest and the new one step in and finish out the life purpose. There was one time after my NDE, I did a lot of deep diving. My spiritual gifts, I've always been very spiritual, always could see and hear spirits as a kid. However, after my NDE, it was like ignited. And I remember leaning heavily on my spirit guides and asking them, like, what is my purpose here? I really need to know my purpose to keep me going because I know what it feels like on the other side. And they took me into a deep trance. Now, this happens to a lot of people that have NDEs. I know it happens to me. It's really easy to go into the spiritual realm. And so after your NDE, like I can easily access it. And so I can go into a trance state and be in the spirit realm. And so usually it's the fifth dimension is what I will go into, sometimes higher. Um, but while I'm there, this one time, my guides took me on a flight. And so I'm like, literally, it's like being on a plane at nighttime and you're flying over a massive land and it's just dark. Maybe there's a few lights turned on down below. And then you approach a city and it's all lit up. Well, this is what my guides were showing me is like, I am here to help bring light to the darkness. And right now, at that moment, this is probably like 4 or 5 years ago, they were showing me I had a few lights that I had lit up, but I was headed into a massive landmass that had, millions of lights lit up, is what they were showing me.
What was that place that they're showing you then?
That's Earth. They were showing me Earth. They were showing me Earth. They were showing me how right now we're going through this massive consciousness awakening. This is like huge, and it's taking decades for this to happen, this transition. So the old ways of things are starting to crumble. The power structures are crumbling, and there's a new way of being here on Earth. And there's so many of us awakening right now, but when you awaken, you go through a dark night of the soul. Because you're shifting, you're having to let go of what you knew was always there and was your reality. You're having to let go of that to step into this new way of thinking, this new way of living, incongruent with still the old structure because it's still here, right? It's very complicated. It's not an easy process. And there's a lot of grief associated with it because you're letting go of a piece of you. So what they were showing me was this is Earth, and there's this massive awakening happening, and having people like my life purpose, and there's many other people's life purpose, is to help guide those that are in the dark, that are starting to awaken to really walk out their truth.
Why do you think so many empaths are attracted to narcissists?
So an empath loves to take care of somebody. So it's like an empath wants to help out. It like fills their ego to take care of the person, make sure that person is feeling good. Um, the empath, again, we feel everyone's feelings. So a lot of time we won't speak our truth because if we speak our truth and we know it's going to upset the other person, then we're going to feel that person's pain. So, but we want to make sure that person feels good. So we are attracted to helping people feel good. And so we'll be attracted to a narcissist, whether it's in a relationship or, even like within work or friendships, or it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. It fuels our ego to take care of people. As for the narcissist, they like people to take care of them. I heard this definition of a narcissist, and I think it's so good. Is a narcissist is somebody that they have their issues that they don't ever want to work on. They want everybody else to like deal with them as how they are. And so having an empath that's willing to put up with them, never willing to work on their issues, is ideal for a narcissist. And the empath is like, oh, good, I get to fix you all the time until you got nothing left.
At this point in your life, do you fear death at all?
No, no, not at all. I look forward to the day that I can transition. And I say that with sensitivity because we all have a purpose here. And I don't believe that we're supposed to be cutting or ending our life short, unless that's your calling. But I know for me, I have a purpose and I have to live it out. And if I don't live it out, I'm going to have to come right back and redo it. And it will be harder. So I'm all in. I'm all in to live out my purpose and to serve my God, serve source in what I'm supposed to be doing here for humanity at this time. But I look forward to that day that I get to. It's going to be a reward.
Do you feel that you have integrated all the previous memories before you became a walk-in?
No, I have not. So if I'm understanding your question correctly, my previous memories in this lifetime or previous lifetimes?
This lifetime, like, you came
Okay.
back and can you remember all of, Emily's life?
Okay, yes, I do remember that. It did take some time, but yes, I do. I have, because your ego, so when you are a walk-in, your ego is still here. It's your soul that has been replaced. And so you don't feel like yourself, but your ego remembers the struggle. And the ego is like we are programmed from birth for struggle. We're programmed for limitations here in this 3D realm.
Let me stop you for a second. That was something profound that you said, and I want to stop you there. Sorry to interrupt you, but you said, we are programmed from birth for struggle. Why is that?
This is the 3D realm that we're in. So my experience of going up into spirit and coming back into this realm was very confining. And there's this power struggle that this density is in that programs us to keep us on this hamster wheel that we can't see beyond what's out there.
Do you believe we choose this programming before we come here?
That's a really interesting question. Yes, I do. I believe our souls come down. We come down knowing what we're signing up for. And we come down and we don't remember, very few of us remember our past lives. And fully, that's a very evolved soul. But coming in and knowing there's a purpose, we know that this density is bringing us into this, that there is going to be this programming. And we're going to go through it because there's no lesson for us if we don't.
Do you think the program is created by other beings or source, or this is some kind of reality or a simulated reality?
Yeah, that is a question I don't know if I can really truly answer. I mean, it's my gut from my own experience is that it's created by so I don't know how much I want to go into this, to be honest with you. But I can go in, I don't want to go into like the reptilians and stuff because that's what I do believe. Yeah.
That sounds
So
interesting.
I don't know enough to really go into the detail of it though. But the reptilians, do you know what the reptilians are?
Yeah, we
Okay.
talk about them usually during my ET videos.
Okay. So the reptilians were the original occupants here on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And so then there's this power struggle because light beings came in to, that's what I don't remember this story, this aspect of the story. The light beings came in, and I don't even remember which ones, to come in and help have some experience here. Well, the reptilians have been holding on to the power. And so that's what this consciousness is, this awakening of this consciousness. I don't know how much you want me to go into that.
Well, we do talk. I mean, you're not the first guest to talk about that.
So I'm happy to share what I just shared with you, but I can't go into much more than that.
Before we were on the air, you mentioned that you've had other NDEs and a UFO experience as well. Did you ever have one of these NDEs before you had UFO experiences?
I did. So my first NDE was when I was like 18 months old. I stopped breathing. I had a high fever from an ear infection. I stopped breathing and I lived in a small town in Northern California. The story goes that I was turning blue and my parents were driving me to the local doctor's office. And then ended up in the hospital in an oxygen tent for a solid week after that. That is what I believe caused my learning disabilities. I can't tell you what happened. I was too young to know, but it was around probably 14 or 15. I want to say, I can't tell you specifically my age, that I had a UFO visit over my family home. We were in the house and we heard this hum. And so we came outside, and my parents lived in a very rural place, and there's massive, like a cow pasture behind them, and just, forest on either sides. So there wasn't a huge population of people around them. Um, we went outside and there was a craft that hovered probably 100 feet. It was just above the tree line, right above their house. And as we looked up, it was really fascinating. It was, I want to say it was like an oval shaped craft, but it had like 100 spotlights that were like shining down on us. And it's so fascinating, Jeff, because when you see a UFO, at least my experience, I wasn't scared. I just kind of was intrigued by it and looking up, and then it all of a sudden vanished off.
You said we, so you and somebody else?
Yeah, my mom and my sisters, my two sisters, and we actually had a family friend over that also saw it at the same time.
So you all saw it. You've all talked to each other and said, "Did you see that?" "Yeah, I saw it."
Yeah.
Although that's amazing that you can all verify it then.
Right. My mom also used to see them all the time outside the pasture. They would come when we were little kids, they would show up.
Do you think that they were coming to see your family? Like perhaps
For my mom. They were coming for my mom.
has she told you that she's ever had any contact with him?
So what I know, I talked to her openly about it, and I talked to her higher self about it. I picked my mom to be my mother because of her connection with the extraterrestrials. And I knew that in this lifetime, I was supposed to be connected to them. So my mom does not remember. She remembers seeing them in our backfield a few times. She got scared and had told them to stop coming, and they will honor that. And so the moment they stopped coming was, or that's, so it basically, they stopped coming, and it kind of put the brakes on what my purpose was in this lifetime. And that's nothing against her. She just was tired. And so because she told them to stop coming, and I know my mom has the ability to astral travel, I do believe that my mom had gone up a few times, or multiple times, probably from her early childhood on, and was working closely with them. And I think probably one of the last times she just was like, I can't do this anymore.
What led you to the information about the reptilians being the original inhabitants of this planet?
So that is something that I have, again, working with my spiritual team and the light beings, I have gone in and have been shown that they were the original ones, and that this was their planet, and that there's this struggle here because they want to keep it.
Can you tell us a little bit about your third NDE?
Okay, so that was the first one that when I was a baby. The third one was when the one I shared about 10 years ago. The second one I had was probably just a few years after I saw that UFO. And there's something that Spirit is wanting me to tell you really quickly.
All right.
So I don't usually share this, but so the third NDE I had about 10 years ago, the reason I had to go to the doctor was because I had a boil on the back of my neck. There was something in there. And so what I don't know for sure, but I've been told by one of my spiritual guides is that there was an implant. Extraterrestrials will sometimes put an implant in people, and there was an implant in the back of my neck that had got dislodged or something happened and created a boil that they had to remove it.
So when the doctor removed the boil, the implant came along with it?
If it did, I don't know if it did, but that's what was told to me on a spiritual level.
All right, let's see where else we can go with
Did you
this.
want to go to my second?
Oh yeah, did we talk about it? Oh,
No,
we
sorry.
lost track. Okay, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I got
Yeah,
a little
it's
sidetracked. So,
okay.
okay. So my second NDE was I was about 16 years old, and I had to get my wisdom teeth removed. So I went to get those removed. They put me under general anesthesia, sent me home. I hadn't woken up fully, and I was sent home. My mom was driving me home. And on the way home, I remember thinking, Mom, I'm not feeling good. Similar feelings to I felt in the last NDE. I'm woozy. I'm not feeling like right. And I remember telling her, I'm not feeling good. Can I please lay down in the back seat? And she's like, No, you need to stay here with me. And then again, I just floated up. I was in a different realm and no connection to my physical body. I didn't know what was going on to my body. I was in a very peaceful state. It was black. It was completely black. I didn't see the silhouette in the white light. It was just black. Um, my mom, again, we lived in a rural place. So my mom called for an ambulance. It took about 30 minutes. My mom had to resuscitate me just to keep me alive. And um, I guess I kept going in and out, in and out. And finally the ambulance came. I don't remember any of this. All I know is when I got in the ambulance or I was on the ride back to the hospital, the EMT was hitting me on my chest, trying to wake me up. Um, and I remember thinking, that really doesn't feel good. And coming back into my body at that moment and going, okay, he took me out of this blissful state and now I'm back into my body. So that was my second NDE that I had. And that was, again, a few years after we had seen that UFO.
If you had a friend that was suffering or grieving over the loss of a loved one, what kind of advice would you give?
I always say, grieve, honor your emotions. Um, and I do share with them that they are in a much better place than we are. But to really truly honor your emotions and don't stuff your emotions, because that's number one rule in my world is don't stuff your emotions. I stuff my emotions as an empath way too long. Knowing like they are here with us. They are here. You think about them. They will communicate with you, but you have to grieve. And there's a point when you need to learn, like the grieving has to go through its process. But if you don't, some people are addicted to grief. And they like that suffering. The ego likes that suffering. So there's a point where you need to let go. But everyone grieves at a different rate. And I do truly believe it's so important to grieve. And if you allow yourself to do that, it's so much easier for our loved ones to visit us when we're in a healthier state. Um, They'll come through dreams, they'll come through songs, they'll come through electronics. They can turn on and off lights easily. There's certain things they can do. A few weeks ago, I was at my mom and dad's house, same house they live in, and we were sitting in the backyard, and one of our childhood friends was visiting, and she had lost her father like a year prior. And we were sitting there and I was telling her about, oh, your dad came through and he gave a message. I was talking to another local person who happened to be friends with your dad, and he came through in one of my readings that I was doing. And I go, he's here for you right now. And right then we looked up and there was this beautiful hawk that just circled where we were, just right at the tree line. And he just kept circling and circling and circling. I'm like, that's your dad. Like, they show up. But if we're in this deep, deep grief and we allow ourselves to stay there and not allow ourselves to move through it, they can't come through.
Can you give some tips out there to people who are going through a dark night of a soul?
So when you're in the middle of a dark night of soul, again, it could be a loss of a loved one, loss of a job. You lose your identity in the process. And as you're going through it, it's important to honor where you're at. The biggest thing that people do in these moments is they get stuck because they want to hold on to what they know. What they know may be uncomfortable, but they're going to hold on to it because that's what they know. And the dark night of the soul is this pivotal moment where the universe is closing doors in certain areas and opening new doors for you to help guide you into a new direction for personal growth, for to get you aligned with your purpose, whatever it may be for you. And these dark nights, these tough situations, learning to let go of what you know and embrace the unknown is key. Now, not everyone is easily able to just let go. I had to do this in learning who I am and learning my purpose. I had to surrender and constantly let go. And I did this through a few different disciplines, but some of the main ones I did was meditation, connecting with my spirit team, understanding like, now I have this gift to be able to talk to my spirit team very easily, and access the spiritual realm. But I do help my current clients that are in the middle of a dark night of soul, help guide them through by working with their spirit team and curating basically their journey for them, what their higher self and their spirit team wants. So for me, it was meditation. It was taking walks. It was going into hibernation and just really doing a deep dive. There are so many layers. We are so complex as human beings, and our layers and layers and layers of different emotions and feelings are also within our DNA. So there's a lot of different work of learning how to unwire ourselves from what we know and reprogram ourselves to where we need to be going.
Do you think it's possible that you decided pre-birth that if you're not fulfilling your purpose, that you would have these NDEs to get you back on track?
That's an interesting question. I don't know. I really don't know if that was a decision that I had made. I think yeah, I don't know if I can answer that. I do think that I have it could have been part of my soul contract. Um or I think, yeah, it may have been part of my soul contract in that learning how to overcome being an empath and finding strength in my sensitivity and learning how to make it is such a powerful gift once you understand how powerful it is to be an empath and not be exploited by it, your sensitivities. It's such an amazing gift. And the purpose of empaths at this time is we have compassion. And we are on a planet right now that is very limited in lacking compassion for one another and for Mother Earth. And compassion is everything right now that is like the lifeline to keep humanity alive, to keep Mother Earth alive. And that is our purpose here as empaths, but understanding how to work with it and having healthy boundaries so that we can really fully step into our purpose here.
Do you believe that being an empath is a good thing? Because it appears that some people struggle with it.
Oh, we all struggle with it when we don't understand it. It's a powerful spiritual gift. It's very powerful. Yeah, but if you don't know how to work with it, it's it's really challenging. I can't tell you, Jeff, how many embarrassing cries I've had, and it wasn't my own feelings. Feeling other people's emotions just overwhelming me. And so learning how to decipher what is mine and what is somebody else's, and learning how to separate myself, that I don't have to bring on the other person's emotions unless it's something I want to. Like, I will work with my clients and know, okay, I'm going to use my empathic gifts to understand really how are they feeling? What are they going through? So I know how to best guide them and not have them feeling unheard. It's a really beautiful gift.
Have the memories of your NDEs faded over time?
No, they haven't. It doesn't go away. It happened. It's like a memory that feels like it happened just yesterday. They're very strong.
What inspires you about your NDEs?
That there's purpose here. Uh, there's there's so having the ability to see the spirit, to experience the spiritual realm, and see it, and seeing that this is 3D is just a tiny piece of who we are as an essence. And we chose to come here, our soul, so that we have purpose, and we want to ultimately ascend our souls, which ultimately will ascend our spirit. Um, and so, yeah, I see that there's purpose for each and every single one of us here. And in those moments that you're maybe in a dark night of the soul, you don't see the purpose. But if you can help be guided out of the dark night, you will see that purpose.
Do you ever think about that we come here basically with amnesia and we have a purpose, but most of us can't remember what it is? Why is that?
Yeah, so my belief is this happens because we have to learn. If we don't learn, we have to have the amnesia so we can come here to learn, and whatever it is that our soul wants to evolve and ascend. So if we don't learn, or if we remember everything, we're not going to learn anything. And we will never ascend. It will be too easy.
Well, after watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions. Are you open to that?
Absolutely. Yes.
What's the best way to reach you?
The best way, probably my website. They can contact me through there. It's Emily Kady, KADY.com. As well as they can find me on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube as Emily Kady Spiritual Medium.
What kind of content are you posting on YouTube?
I usually do a weekly channeled message that I get from ancestors, my spirit team, and it's usually just nuggets of information to help guide people through these transitional times that we're in the middle. It's very pivotal and polarizing for a lot of people. So it's glimmers of hope to just guide them through what is going on. I also do a daily shorts of, again, sometimes it's card readings, whatever I'm guided by spirit to share and give people some hope to help guide them out of the dark nights of the soul, and really discover why they're here.
Do you usually channel like a certain being, like some people channel, X, Y, and Z, or do you just channel a multitude of beings?
I channel a multitude. I work with specific, it could be ascended masters. It's all Christ consciousness. So it could be ascended masters, or I do channel light beings. I do channel different archangels that will come through. Usually I'll work with them for a while, and then I'll start channeling them, and they'll give me messages. And the messages are always of love. They're always of love and hope, um, and they give some really powerful tips to help people with where they're at.
Do you have anything else that you're working on that you want people to know about?
Right now, I'm working to, my clients are people that are in the middle of a dark night of a soul, and they quite frankly don't know which end is up, and they feel like their life has been sucked out of them. There, and what I do is, again, I channel, I work with their higher self, I work with their spirit team to help curate and guide them out of it so that they can start to see some hope and open up new doors of opportunity for them. So that's my passion. I've been there. I know how hard it is. And to have somebody support you through this process is something I absolutely love to do.
Does it take a long time for someone to kind of get out of that condition?
It can. So what you have to overcome is the ego. So it's reprogramming the mind. So sometimes I'll use some quantum, physics to help bring in the reprogramming of the mind. I have a bunch of tools that I work with, as well as the spiritual realm. Just to help my clients. So again, the ego likes suffering. That's what the ego knows. So how do we let the ego know it's okay to let go of the suffering and thank the ego for protecting you at a time of your life that maybe you needed that protection. However, today you don't need that protection. And I could go into how the mind is, our minds are developed, between the ages of like being born to age 5, 6, 7, 8 latest. And that is what our ego is. So I like to say our minds are really immature. Our ego is really immature, and our ego is guiding us as adults. So you have this like immature mind that was created, the subconscious, or the conscious was, excuse me, not the subconscious, the conscious was created at such an early age, and that is what's guiding us as adults. So I work with my clients to help them retrain the brain to expand the consciousness out of this limitation and into a whole new way of thinking. And so minimum, usually I work with my clients minimum 3 months. 3 months to 6 months is what I generally do.
Before we finish up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
Absolutely. I I really believe that everyone needs to know that they are worthy here. And we all have value and we all have a purpose. And in those moments you don't feel like you have it, you do. And it's worth taking the time to hiring somebody or working with a friend or a family member that can help you show you that you do have that value and the worth. Because we need you. The world needs you to be lit up and help us through this great awakening that we're going through.
Emily, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you for having me, Jeff.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.